Today we're going to explore the vibrant town of Moab, Utah and uncover the pros and cons of living in this vibrant desert oasis. But there's also some realities of desert life that you need to know about, and I've got the inside scoop. Hey, and if you stick around to the end, I'll throw in a couple bonus pros for you about what it's like living in Moab. So first pro, national parks. Arches and Canyonlands are surround Moab, Utah. Arches National Park is home to over 2,000 natural stone arches, including the iconic Delicate Arch. And it's a paradise for photographers and hikers alike. I've been there many times with my family. That hike to Delicate Arch, super fun, a little challenging, but the reward is amazing. Now, Canyonlands National Park, it's divided into 4 distinct districts. Each offers a unique landscape and activities, from the Needles' colorful spires to the islands and the skies and all the breathtaking overlooks. I got to tell you, they're also a little scary. You're going to hang on to your little ones a little bit tighter. I remember being there a few years ago with our little kids, and man, those drop-offs are absolutely, they are breathtaking, but you're hanging on to your kid because it's a little scary. Now, another thing that people don't know about is both parks are designated as international dark sky parks, so it provides some of the best stargazing you'll experience in the country. Geological wonders of these, just you can explore unique rock formations. There's ancient petroglyphs and some dramatic landscapes. They're shaped by millions of years of erosion. And then of course there's just a varied hiking trails all over Canyonlands and Arches. Lots of challenging backcountry hikes, and there's really a hike for every single level of hiker. So anyway, that's pro number 1, the national parks, Arches and Canyonlands. Okay, let's start off with con number 1, which is limited job opportunities. So the economy of Moab is quite tourism dependent, so jobs are heavily reliant on the tourism, and so it can be more seasonal and less stable. There's not as much industry in Moab, so there's fewer opportunities in specialized fields and industries compared to larger cities. And again, you may be looking at part-time or seasonal work. For example, if you're a river guide, then you're only going to be working in the summertime being a river guide, or perhaps same thing with guiding people on mountain biking things up in the mountains. So that's one of the big limitations to Moab, is there are limited job opportunities. Pro number 2 for Moab has got to be it's an outdoor recreation mecca. A lot of people know it for the jeeping. You know, you can experience the thrill of off-roading here on the famous trails like Hell's Ravines and Fins and things. I've watched some people do some absolutely crazy things with Jeeps and Moabs, things that I would never even dare try. But of course, you've probably also heard of Moab as being a mecca for mountain biking. You can tackle the renowned Slick Rock Trail. Let me tell you, that whole loop's about 13 miles. You better be in shape for that. I did that once, and man, I paid for it. It was difficult. There's also, there's the Klondike trails. There's just so many dirt trails in the Klondike Trail area, which is probably about 10 miles or so north of Moab. There's just too many mountain biking trails to even mention. There's also a lot of road bike trails. There's road bike pathways up the Colorado River that people enjoy riding. So when it comes to mountain biking or road biking, there's just a lot to do in the Moab area. And now, of course, river rafting. You have the Colorado River. I've been on that with the youth groups quite a few times, and it's sometimes when the river's running high, it can be pretty scary, but normally it's a pretty laid-back, easygoing river rafting trip, good for all ages. And so we've been there a couple times, done a couple of those. It is fun to get on that river and do some river rafting. Of course, you've got some hiking and camping everywhere, all around. You've got the LaSalle Mountains that are close by that you can hike and camp in. You can also hike and camp in the Klondike area, just all kinds of areas in and around Moab. Just check out like an All Trails or an app like that. You'll find many places that you can enjoy hiking and camping. And of course, a lot of people like ATV riding. You'll see people riding all over town in the ATVs. And many times they kind of have those souped up ATVs that they go kind of do jeeping with that. So outdoor recreation mecca, pro number 2 for Moab. Con number 2, I probably should have made it con number 1, but it is extremely hot in Moab, especially in the summer. You're in excess of 100 degrees all throughout the summer. It can make it a little bit miserable camping in the summertime because you just can't get cool. Anyway, there's minimal shade, so even if you are in the shade, it doesn't feel like you're in the shade. It's just hot all the time. So anyway, that's one of the The cons is the fact that it's so hot. Now I should say it could be a little bit of a pro in that in the wintertime it's warmer than along the Wasatch Front in Utah, so it's kind of nice down in Moab. It's kind of fun to get away from the Wasatch Front, get away from the Provo area or Salt Lake area and head on down to Moab where it's just a little bit warmer. All right, so pro number 3 is the natural scenery beyond the national parks. I mentioned a little bit about the La Salle mountain range, but when you go look at Delicate Arch, what frames right behind the Delicate Arch is the La Salle mountain range. It's a high mountain, beautiful high alpine mountains. There's a beautiful scenic byway drive that goes up through the La Salle mountains, so you get up into the pines and the quaking aspens. There's lakes that you can fish and camp at, lots of hiking trails. A lot of people like to take the mountain bikes up there and mountain bike around. Another thing that you can do in the Moab area is the Colorado River. It just runs right through Moab, so a lot of people love to river raft on there and just recreate on the Colorado River. There's some primitive camping sites, so you can camp along the Colorado River. Now, there's also, beyond the national parks, there's a couple state parks very nearby. Dead Horse Point State Park. It's really close to Moab, and it's known for its breathtaking views of the Colorado River. It's got kind of a very iconic horseshoe bend view of the Colorado River. It's very much photographed. And then if you're up for a little bit of a drive, probably 2 hours, you could be over to Goblin Valley State Park, which is really cool. I mean, the landscape is just surreal. You almost feel like you're on Mars or something. It's a lot of fun to hike through Goblin Valley State Park. So there you have it. There's some additional, that's pro number 3, the natural scenery beyond the national parks. Con number 3 is you can have limited accommodations, especially on high demand holidays. So finding accommodations during peak holiday weekends can be extremely challenging. We experienced that on spring break a couple years ago. Somehow we were fortunate enough to find one room that was available. So it can be real difficult to get accommodations during those high peak times. Also, the national parks can become very crowded again, especially when you're talking about maybe during spring break in Utah or other surrounding areas, and everybody's wanting to get off the Wasatch Front and get where it's a little warmer. Those national parks can get really crowded. Sometimes you can even see long wait times just to be able to even get in to places like Arches National Park. Especially if you're going to go during those holiday weekends, you may want to consider booking even a year out in advance so that you can make sure you've got a place to stay. And then again, it can be quite expensive to book accommodations in Moab. Again, especially during those high peak times, you're going to pay a premium to stay there. Sometimes we just pull a little camper down and stay in one of the RV parks. That's a fun option, a little bit cheaper than staying in one of the hotels around there. So anyway, there is your con number 3, the limited accommodations. Pro number 4 is Moab Main Street. It can really be a lot of fun. It really lights up with a lot of activity. It's fun any time of the day. During the daytime, it's not as busy, I'd say, just especially in the summer because it can get really hot. But man, when it gets towards dusk and dark, the lights, all the shops light up, and it just everybody's walking up and down both sides of Main Street, and it just really comes alive and feels alive. So there's a lot of unique shops up and down Main Street. You can find all kinds of one-of-a-kind souvenirs, local art. If you're into buying some expensive art, there's some pretty expensive art galleries along there, but also a lot of other eclectic kind of Western wear type shops where you can find Southwestern and Native American souvenirs. So a lot of great shops. So Main Street on Moab can be a fun place to hang out, especially at nighttime. Con number 4 is limited amenities. So there aren't any retail or major retail chains in Moab. I'm talking the likes of chains like Walmart, Costco, major malls. So you don't have those accommodations, those amenities right in Moab. You have limited healthcare facilities, so there is a hospital there. You've got that, but if there's some major things, they're probably going to fly you over to the largest trauma hospital over in Grand Junction, Colorado. So there's also sparse entertainment options when it comes to stuff like movie theaters, concert halls, rec centers. There's not as much of that in Moab. Also, the local stores sometimes just have higher prices because of the lack of competition, or also because it just costs more money to import the goods that people need to a higher transportation cost. And then the other thing is you're probably going to have to travel for those major purchases. If you want to have a large selection of furniture, you're probably going to want to drive to some place like R.C. Willey along the Wasatch Front, or maybe even over to Grand Junction to find a large furniture store to find something you want, or if you want to have a larger inventory of, say, vehicles to look at, you're probably going to want to go to a dealership in one of those larger towns. So generally, you're going to be traveling if you want to be making major purchases to find more options. Pro number 5 is Moab has a great food scene. In fact, one of my favorite restaurants down there is called Pasta J's. It's right on Main Street. Has some fantastic pizza and pastas. There's also a whole bunch of other local restaurants. We went to one that's a little further north on Main Street where we were served up buffalo burgers, and those were delicious. And there's also a nice food park that's just barely off of Main Street. So sometimes they have farmers markets. There's also various breweries and coffee shops, and even some healthy options there with some places that specialize more in vegetarian or vegan type of food offerings. So that is my pro number 5, is Moab can have a great food scene. Finally, my con number 5 is isolated. It's an isolated location. Moab is just kind of out there away from everything. You're far from major cities. You're hours away from the major metropolitan areas like the Wasatch Front. I'm talking Provo, Salt Lake City. Probably the closest major metropolitan area would be Grand Junction in Colorado. So also you've got very limited transportation options, making having a personal vehicle absolutely essential. So you're not going to have a high-speed rail or anything like that. You're not really no bus services, things like that. So you're going to have a car to get around there. And then of course long drives. You're going to have long drives. That's going to be required for major services and amenities and entertainment that's not available locally. And then perhaps you could have this feeling of isolation just being out in this remote area. For some people that come from an urban setting, or they may not like feeling so far out and away from everything. But for others, that's why they're there. They love that feeling of being away and having a small town. Okay, so I have a couple bonus pros for Moab. One of the things is it has a great recreation center right in the center of town with water park, skate park, playgrounds. Multiple times I've been down there with friends and family, and we go in and go over to the water park and enjoy cooling off in there. One morning while my family was sleeping, I got up early, paid a couple bucks, and went in and used the weight room and had a good workout. So that's a nice amenity for that town, is the recreation center. But probably one of the hidden gems a lot of people haven't heard about is the waterfall, the Mill Creek waterfall. It's literally just a few minutes drive to the parking area from downtown Moab. And then you're going to walk for probably 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes up that Mill Creek, that pond or reservoir, whatever you call it, stream, creek, whatever you want to call that. And then you're rewarded at the end of it with a really fun little waterfall. The kids love to climb up that and jump off of it. And it's cold year round, even in the middle of summer when it's 105 degrees outside. It's a great place to cool off and refresh. So an additional bonus pro I almost forgot to talk about is the Sand Flats Recreation Area, which is just right up, just directly east of Moab. And this is actually where the Slick Rock Trail is at and all the jeeping trails. But there's also primitive camping right in that area. And that's just a fun little pro a lot of people don't know about. They can pull their campers down there and pick a spot and camp. And then a lot of people pull their Jeeps behind their campers and just have a great weekend out of hanging out on the Sand Flats Recreation Area. Hey again, my name's Scott Walters, Best USA Realty, and this is your Living in Provo, Utah YouTube channel. I'm your Utah YouTubing realtor. If you've enjoyed this video about what it's like living in the Moab area, you might also enjoy my video about some other southern Utah towns like the pros and cons of living in St. George. You can watch that by clicking here, or perhaps you want to know more about living in Bryan Head area. That's also another southern Utah town. You can watch that video by clicking here. And if you want a quick tour of Bryce Canyon, which isn't too far away from Moab, but maybe 2 hours or so, you can watch that video by clicking here. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap on the notification bell so you can stay current every time I drop another video about living in Utah. With that, we'll catch you on the next video.